Good morning and welcome back to Sun Upon 7. Just before the break, we had our very dynamic couch talk as usual. But now we're switching into our first conversation, and we are joined with the Minister of Health and Wellness, Kevin Bernard, via Zoom. And I just want to say, Mr. Bernard, we were noticing that all our guests these days, when they make their third rungs on our show, when need for dance, when they're up for Zoom. So, no need for dance. But anyways, so we're here discussing, good morning, we're here discussing the tomorrow, really, because it's tomorrow that these effects will happen with this. But the new regulations, or no regulations at all, we're here to clarify this. So I hope you're doing well this morning. We need to get in the conversation though. Could you tell us, Mr. Bernard, what should we expect tomorrow?
Well, definitely. Good morning, and thank you all for having me once again on SunUp. It's always a privilege to be able to have this platform to share information to our general public. As you well know, that at the last cabinet meeting when we had the retreat, we had decided to open up the country on April 1st fully. So starting tomorrow, all restrictions other than the restrictions that we have out when it comes to the people coming into the country or exiting the country, those remains, but all other restrictions that we had set out have been removed. So for those who have been asking about nightclubs and bars and concerts and gatherings, those restrictions have now will be fully lifted as of tomorrow. In fact, an SI is being prepared, and that SI will highlight the three main things that will remain. One of them being that visitors coming into the country by air will more likely be tourists that are unvaccinated, has to present a rapid test within 48 hours of their flight, or a PCR test within 72 hours. As well, foreigners 5 years and over that are coming through land or seaport has to do likewise. That is, present your rapid test and your PCR test, and again, the same time limit, 48 hours and 72 hours. Now, when it comes to the Belizeans exiting the border or air or seaports, that restriction remains, where 12 years and over, once you want to leave this country, and as a Belizean, you must be vaccinated to leave the country. 5 years and 11 years, between 5 and 11, because of the fact that we don't have the vaccines as yet, which we're hoping to get very soon. Though those persons will not be restricted in order to travel with their parents. So apart from that, all other restrictions that were set out for sports, for all the other activities, has now been lifted.
So there's no social distancing or anything like that anymore?
Well, you know that as we have to also people have to be aware that we're not saying that COVID is gone. It's here, but we're basically saying, I think we've lived with this thing for 2.5 years almost. We must understand what we need to do as an individual. The responsibility now lies between me and you and those, right? So we just need to make sure that people understand that it's up to you now to protect yourselves. Whether you want to follow that social distancing, personally, I will tell you that, and I've said this over and over, I will wear my mask in public. I will wear my mask indoor. I will make sure that I keep my distance wherever I need to, where possible. I will avoid gatherings. That is just my personal opinion, my personal choice. And so we want to encourage Belizeans that despite the fact that we are removing the restrictions, you continue to do your part in being responsible, in knowing what we had to do to control the spread of the virus, to continue to take your own precautions and do things by what you have learned. And so we feel that it is time that we had to open up back. It's been 2+ years, and I think it's high time. We have been gradually removing the restrictions. Apart from those small restrictions that remain, well, everything else will now go back to pre-COVID conditions.
Minister, in regards to schools, what is the decision that is going to be made when it comes to schools for the mask wearing? Will the children still have to be wearing the mask at schools? Will we now move on opening schools fully? What is the plan for this? What is the plan for schools?
Well, from the discussions that we've been having since we cabinet made the decision, one of the things that we're suggesting to the Ministry of Education and will be suggested to the Ministry of Education, because these are young children between the age of 5 and 11 for the most part, and they have not been vaccinated. We want to encourage that population to continue to wear their masks indoor because you are within the setting. We want to encourage that. Well, we want to also state that we are encouraging the return to face-to-face, full face-to-face sessions. Whether the Ministry of Education will choose to do this after the Easter break or in the new school year, it will be something that they are discussing along with the Ministry of Health. I know that they have still had some schools that had to prepare to make sure that all is in order, and I know that the Ministry of Education is looking at that. But I think I must also commend them because I think they have put in place a very good plan for the return of school and for the return of face-to-face. From our indication that I have, I think they are more moving towards the new school year so that we go continuing to a full face-to-face. And so for those who are continuing the hybrid, I believe that will continue for the remainder of the school year. And so when they go back, to sessions in August or September, whenever the primary school starts, then that will be a full-fledged face-to-face.
Minister, I want to ask now, with a complete, not evacuation, I'm trying to look forward, with the complete ruling off or setting off of the protocols that we had before, some people might be saying, you know what, well, since we're fully, fully normalized, we could say that now, right? When it comes to getting my vaccine now, why should I get my vaccine? If you know what, we could continue living our lives to the fullest.
I hear you. I hear you very much, and I think that's one of the points that we have been saying as well at the ministry. Opening up and removing restriction doesn't mean that when we're just going to let loose and not go on an aggressive campaign in getting and encouraging more Belizeans to be vaccinated. In fact, what we're doing, as you know, we had a lot of mobile sites set out in the different districts and municipalities and in the cities where people were accessing testing easily. What we are asking now, what we're going to deploy those persons that are employed that were employed temporarily to now go out into the field and on the ground and try and target those persons who have not yet been vaccinated. Let me say this though, and I think that generally most Belizeans will say the same. I think we have reached a level where we've been hovering at that 50% for a long while, at 48, 49. Now we are finally at 50% with population, the overall population at 50% first dose and about almost 49% with second dose. But when you look at the target population, because we were not able to, we don't have the vaccines for 5 to 11. When you look at the target population, we're at a little over 68%. So when you factor in the 5 to 11-year-old, whenever we get that vaccine, and like I said, I hope it's pretty soon. We're pushing very hard through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in having discussions with some countries. I know Spain and Italy is one of these areas that are offering, and Germany, I think, also one of the countries offering the pediatric vaccines. We believe that we will be able to then reach that target. So we really want to express from a ministry standpoint that we want to continue to encourage Belizeans, for those who still have that hesitancy, to go out and get vaccinated. We will reach a point where there will just be a matter of choice. You know, the ministry, the government has spent enough resources on acquiring vaccines. You will realize the last time we spoke, we had to report that I think it was about 20,000 AstraZeneca vaccine that had to be disposed of. So we want to encourage Belizeans. There are Pfizer still in stock. We have Johnson & Johnson vaccine still in stock. The Johnson & Johnson vaccines don't expire until June 2023. But we have the Pfizer that is coming to an expiry end of May. And so we are looking at acquiring some new vaccines as well. But we're going to be monitoring that. And we are focusing on the pediatric vaccines for now. And we want to encourage those parents, whenever that time comes, to get your children vaccinated as well.
Minister, I want to just get some clarity because some parents were messaging. You mentioned that you're encouraging still right now, presently, we're based on Ministry of Education, you've already made the indication that we would want to have a face-to-face fully on, but it's more indicated that they might just wait until the beginning of the new semester in September, right? You mentioned you encourage mask wearing still, but there is supposed to be a mandatory mask wearing for children in school. Could you just make reference if that is something, because like you said right now, for public buildings and all these things that people they don't have to be wearing their mask. So now, just can you please clarify when it comes to children, is it mandatory or is just encouraged when it comes to children in schools?
It's not mandatory because we have lifted the restrictions, but we are encouraging from a Ministry of Health standpoint, directly with the Ministry of Education, that for those young population, that we are encouraging them to continue the indoor mask wearing, especially until we can satisfy ourselves that we have those vaccines in stock and we get those vaccines into the children. So that's just from a ministry standpoint. Now, from a government standpoint, we have decided that we're going to remove the mask restrictions, but we are recommending that from a Ministry of Education standpoint, the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Health have been in discussion, and we're encouraging that in the school population that they continue to remain indoor with the mask. And that's one of the recommendations coming in just yesterday from our medical team that is making that recommendation.
Okay, so Minister, again, it's just for our audience, maybe they have just joined us. Tomorrow or is it right to say
Midnight.
Midnight tonight.
Midnight tonight, so yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Great. So there's no more enforcement of mask regulations, indoors, because the outdoors were already disposed of.
Yeah, we have already lifted the outdoor.
Right.
But let me say this though, that as you realize that even though we had lifted the outdoor mask restriction, when you walk the streets of Belize, everywhere you go, you still see people genuinely wearing their masks.
Yes.
Very true.
Because Belizeans have come used to this, and I think that it has become now part of our norm to say, you know what, I'm going to protect myself. I'm going to make sure that I'm protecting others and as well my family. And so, just as I said, outdoor I wear my mask. I mean, we as a family we practice that even before the COVID. So. But definitely, I want to encourage everyone here to as Belizeans to continue to do things responsibly. It's by being responsible that we are going to continue to keep the transmission very low. And so it is up to us. It is up to you. It's up to all of us as citizens of this country to continue to keep our country safe from COVID.
All right.
Thank you so much, Minister. I just want to ask one more thing because one of the viewers is just seeking clarity. In regards to swabbing, when you leave and come back, do you still have to be getting swabbed? Because I do understand the vaccination is still in place where to leave you must be vaccinated, but they want to understand if it's you're still supposed to get swabbed before and after when you're leaving Belize.
Well, remember, if you're a Belizean leaving our land borders, we don't require swabbing to leave. But if the country where you're traveling to ask for a test, then you have to go and do your test. But our people going over to Chetomal or so and returning, all they need to do is present their vaccination card. There's no more need for testing.
Thank you so much for that clarity, Minister. And thank you so much for, I believe Belizeans will call it the good news, to feel a little bit of a glimpse of what normalcy is. But again, like you've mentioned before, although we have this, that there's removal of mask wearing and, the social distancing and all these things, you still need to be practicing caution. You still need to
Yes.
be,
That's
if you
right.
want to wear a mask, if you feel comfortable to wear a mask, don't feel any way about it, because as you mentioned,
Exactly.
even with the outside mask being eliminated for a while now, people still wear their masks outside. You can tell that
That's
people
right.
still feel more comfortable wearing their masks. So yes, now we have a little bit more freedom. Yes, we have clubs opening and all these different things. But if you don't feel like yourself, you have the perfect choice to stay at home, to wear your mask, to do what you need to do. And as you mentioned, the vaccination campaign will still be full-fledged on. People can still go out and get their vaccination. Because it is there and available. It is a line of defense that we can be able to access.
Right.
So
That's right.
I want to thank you so much for your time, Minister, for being
Thank
here.
you.
We
Thank you both.
understand
Thank you both.
Thank
you're about to catch a leave flight for go somewhere.
Yes, yeah.
This a personal flight or this a minister flight? You're going to go.
government business.
Okay,
All right,
just to check, you know,
that-
because maybe after you done
Yes.
give the good news, I said, I can go take a leave trip now, man. I can relax myself a leave.
Spring break, no?
Spring break for you, but
No. It's government trip. Yeah. So, but thank you all very much, and continue to keep safe, and God bless.
Thank you, too,
thank you to
Minister.
Traveling Mercies. And so with that, we go to our next commercial break. When we're back, we're going to be talking about Transgender Visibility Day with Erica Castellanos. So stay tuned for that exciting, informative conversation, because I'm sure many of you have not even heard about that day before. And she's our own Belizean that is living in the Netherlands. She's going to be giving you the scoop. So stay tuned for that great conversation. We'll be right back.